Do we like the hair? I don't know. We're gonna run with it. If it looks like I'm bald, then lessons learned. Never do this again. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be doing my July wrap-up. I am flabbergasted and also very excited that it is August the 2nd right now. I cannot explain to you how excited I am for fall. I am one of those pumpkin spice latte girls. If once it turns fall, all I want to do is wear cowboy boots and flannels and drink my PSL and be that girl. Yep. I will happily admit it. Guilty as charged. I'm a PSL fall Pinterest girly, and I can't wait for it. So we are going to go ahead and hopefully transition out of summer soon and move into fall. But in order to do that, we need to do our wrap up. We need to wrap up July. So I'm going to really quickly jump onto my story graph because I need to find out exactly how many books I read, how many pages I read, and all of those fun statistics that people like, such as me. Okay, so for the month of July, I read 11 books, and that equates to 4,269 pages. I also listened to 14.82 hours of an audiobook. So that is my generalized stats. I do have also on my Notion, that's more of a true rating. It's where I put all of my, all of the books that I read, my comments, my thoughts. I actually have a video coming up. I think I'm going to record it this weekend and it'll be uploaded next week. I have on my Notion a new page that has like formulas for how I kind of estimate I mathematically find the ranking of my books given 3 factors or 3 criteria with 5 factors. So that's what I've been using. So I'm going to go to my Notion really quick and give you my stats for the books that I did read in July. So let's go to just July. So for the books that I read, which like I said, I read 11 books. I had on my list 16, so I did not read 5 books, but I'm okay with that. Not a problem. But I ended up having an average rating for those 11 books of 3.95, which isn't the best. I've definitely had much better reading months. So these were not the best books, surprisingly, that I had this month. So we're just going to go ahead and get into it, and we're going to talk through what I thought, what my ranking was, and kind of the generalized idea of how the month of July went. So we're going to scroll to the very first book that I read in the month of July, which was Two Twisted Crowns. So I finally finished the duology of the Rachel Gillick. It's the Shepherd King duology. I did finally finish this. I finished it at the very beginning of July, and my Notion, when I plugged in my factors, Notion said I should have rated this 4-star. I actually decided on my ranking it's going to be a 4.5. Now, the reason why I did that was in this book, I fully expected it was going to be all about Raven and Elspeth. Like, I knew in the first book, that's kind of the focus of the story was Rachel and Elspeth. Not Rachel. Was Raven and Elspeth. And that's kind of what I was anticipating. But in this book, you had another couple that I was not anticipating, and I really enjoyed reading that couple. It was Elm and Ione. It's Ione. Books or characters that have a lot of vowels. I don't know how to pronounce them, but it was Elm and her. I really enjoyed reading those two relationships. So I was definitely not expecting to have a 2-couple kind of back and forth in this story, and I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed the way it wrapped up. I was surprised. I did not think I was going to enjoy it as much as I did, but I did. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. Then the next book that I read in the month of July was Not in Love. And I ended up plugging this in the formula. And again, Notion said that this book was a 4-star based on my rankings. And I ended up deciding that I was going to bump this up to a 4.25 because I really did enjoy the book. It was over Eli and Rue. And I think I probably would have rated this even higher than 4.25 if I had more of a connection to Rue. Like, I was eating up the Eli storyline, but it was whenever it flipped over to her storyline or her point of view, I didn't actually enjoy it as much. Surprisingly, the female character, I didn't really care whenever I flipped to her point of view. I wanted to jump back over to Eli. So it was a good time. I really enjoyed it. I liked the romance, but this one just didn't have, again, I didn't care for Rue. I think that was what it was. So it was a good read. It just, there was some lack of connection between me and her character. The next book that I read was How Does It Feel? And I actually have a video of me reading this book. I do have reactions to me reading it. And so if you would like to see my actual reactions of me reading this book, definitely I'll try to link it above. But Notion had the formula as a 4.4, which I bumped up to a 4.5. And I stand by that ranking. It was a good time. I enjoyed that book. I am actually going to be reading the second book of that series in August. I said I was going to hold off on it because I just couldn't. Like, I just couldn't not read this next book. That's how good it is. So, it's 4.5. Definitely check out that video if you want to see my, immediate reactions while I'm reading the book. So, 4.5. Then the next book that I read in July was Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I have never read a book by her. I also talk about this book in that same video of How Does It Feel, so you can see my reactions to this book as well. This book, Notion had me ranking it as a 4.6, and I bumped it up to a 4.75. It was the vibe that was a little off. It was so close. I connected to the character, but it wasn't my vibe. I guess, I don't know. It was just weird. This one was so close to a 5-star, but it just didn't have every aspect that I have when I need to have a 5-star. So it was very, very, very good. I highly recommend. I definitely want to read Nora Goes Off Script. I think that's that's one of her other books. But it wasn't a 5-star for me, but I can definitely see how people ate up this book and absolutely loved it. So 4.75, very good read. It's definitely worth the hype in my perspective. And then the next book I read was Her Soul to Take, and Notion had me rating this as a 3.4. I bumped it up to a 3.5. Now, this book was my first paranormal romance. So essentially Leon is a demon and Ray is a college student who comes back to her hometown that her parents left from years ago, and she wanted to come back. She's a YouTuber investigating paranormal activity, and so she bumps into Leon and things happen. And this one has a lot of spice in it, but I think what I absolutely can't stand, and this isn't just the only reason, but one of the reasons why I do not like horror films is the female character is always dumb. And I can't stand it. You should not do whatever activity is ahead of you because there's danger out there. But yet these stupid female characters always do it. And that was what I felt like with Ray. It was she knows there's some creature outside just trying to get at her and kill her. They're hunting her. She knows this. So Leon says, stay in the house. And this is only one instance that this happens. This is not the only instance. Leon says, stay in the house. Don't open the door. I'm going to take care of it. He bounces because he's a freaking demon and has the capability of doing damage to the creature that's trying to hunt her. So he has capability to take care of the situation. And she decides to go outside with like a baseball bat or a stick. And it's like, why? Why? And it drives me crazy. And that was kind of my reaction to this book. I do want to continue the series because there are, I don't know how many books there are in that like series, but there is a couple other characters that I am interested, that you get introduced to in this book. And I do want to read their story because I'm curious if they're as stupid as Ray was. I don't think so. Specifically, one character, Juniper, she seems like a badass character, and I don't think she would be doing stupid stuff. So I'm really wanting to continue the series, and maybe I'll have a different reaction. But Ray just annoyed me, just with her stupidity and things. I will say she has a cat named Cupcake. Loved that. So, but it was a 3.5. Definitely going to continue the series. It just wasn't. I just didn't like I didn't like the FMC. I liked the MMC. Leon was cool. I liked reading about him, but yeah, Ray she needed to adjust her personality a little bit, and not her personality, her intelligence. She needed a update on what she considers as a smart action to take in the face of dangerous situations. Then the next book I read, I was actually really excited to read. And it wasn't my most anticipated read of the year, but it was definitely a book that I was really looking forward to. I pre-ordered it, and I was so excited to read this book. And it fell flat for me. Reckless. So this is book 2 of the Powerless trilogy. I did read Powerful recently, which was Adina's story. It's a little novella. And it was okay. I did enjoy that one. I was hoping that Mac in that novella would show up in here, but he hasn't, I don't think. Maybe he'll show up in the next book. I don't know. But for Reckless, Notion rated this 3.2. I bumped it up to 3.25. Now, the problem with this, and what my anticipation of this book is I really enjoyed the relationship, the romance, the banter, the back and forth between Kai and Peyton and Powerful or Powerless. And I was anticipating at least something along those lines in Reckless. And it seemed to me that there were a lot of like back and forth between Kai and Peyton, but it lacked the romance. Like, you could tell that they liked each other. You could tell that they had romance for each other. They both loved each other. But I don't know, it wasn't the same. I didn't enjoy it. And the other problem is there was literally no plot. Good gracious. There was literally no plot in this book. It was essentially Kai was sent to find Peyton and bring her back to the kingdom, to the king, to see Kit. And that was it. Like, the whole plot was him finding her, bringing her back. But there was nothing else. Like, there was no other storyline. And so it just lacked. It was just lacking. But I'm not mad about it, because normally in trilogies, you have the first book, really, really good, usually. Second book is a lot of times it's like the filler book. Like, it's the one that you probably have the least attachment to. And then the last book is when all hell breaks loose. The story wraps up, plots come forward, plot twists happen, and then you get the final story. And so usually the last book is very like action driven, it's very emotional and all of that. So the second book in a trilogy is usually the one that I like the least. So I'm not mad at it. I was just anticipating more out of it. So I still really enjoy Kai. Like, he is my favorite. I love Kai. I love just his humor and what he does and how he cares for Peyton and is trying to like internalize and deal with what happened to the king and his brother and what she did and who she is and what he's learned throughout this book. Like, you see the struggle and just like the things that he does for her and the way he like thinks about her in his like POV. It's just chef's kiss. Love it. Absolutely cannot wait for the next book. And I'm really, really hoping that, I think the next one is Fearless. Hopefully Fearless is so much better. Hopefully it's a 5-star. I really, really, really want it to. Really enjoy the series. And this just wasn't It just wasn't it. So unfortunately, this was a 3.25. Then the next book that I read was Hawke. And I have never read a book by Jessie something. I can't remember what her name is. I've never read one of her books before. And I saw her on, like, someone had reviewed that book on TikTok as, like, a favorite book boyfriend. And so I had to read it. Really, really, really enjoyed it. Notion said that should have been a 4.2. I ranked it as a 4-star. It was kind of a love triangle, sort of. Really enjoyed Hawke's storyline, and I liked the plot behind it. It was interesting. So the thing is I don't really know how to put into. I don't know how I feel about it. So I liked the book. I liked Hawke. I liked the story. But the thing is this book is a cheating trope book. So if you don't like cheating in books, like, you know you're cheating. It's not like a you would know that you're cheating regardless. Like, it's not like you're flirting with somebody and it's kind of on the border of, is this cheating, is this not cheating? Like, she cheated. And it's the entire book. She's cheating. It finally comes out at the end of the book. But it was, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I did like the book. I did enjoy the story. But it just, I couldn't rate it really high. So it was a 4-star. I am also, in August, I am reading Kid, which is a side character in Hawke. I really, really, really liked it whenever Kid was whenever he got introduced and whenever he was part of the story. I really enjoyed the Kid's character. So I am reading his book in August, which is exciting. So hopefully that one's gonna be much better. I'm hoping that's not a cheating trope. I don't know what trope that is. I'm picking it up today. So hopefully I have a much better rating for Kid. But Hawke was good. It was a 4-star. It was good for what it was. But if you don't like a cheating trope, definitely don't read that book. The next book that I read was The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. This is book 2 of the Off-Campus series. Notion said that this would have been a 4.8. I bumped this down to a 4.75. So this one had Grace and Logan. And what I really liked about this is Logan is like he's a man whore. That's all it is. He's a man whore. But he becomes boy obsessed. And I loved it. It was so good. I love when boy obsessed is part of the story. Like, when the boy is, like, obsessed with the girl, it eats for me. I love it. It was amazing. So the other thing that I really liked about this book is they really communicated well. Like, they could sense when the others, like the facial expressions, when they were kind of upset or something was wrong, like they sensed it or they saw it. They were very observant and they wanted to, like, openly communicate what the problem was. So it wasn't like a miscommunication that was an issue. Like, they were very open with what their problem was, which I enjoyed. So this was a great book. I am going to continue the Off-Campus series. I do want to get through with this series so I can start reading the kids storyline, because Elle Kennedy did come out with the kids of these characters are in a series now. So I do want to finish Off-Campus so I can read the kids stories as well. So really good. I enjoyed it. 4.75. I can't wait to read the next book. The next book I read was a dark romance book that I happened to see. Like, I think Larissa really likes this duology, but I think she likes the second book more than she does the first book. So I read There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. Now, I like Sophie Lark books. I've read several of her books, and I've pretty much liked them all. They haven't been amazing, but they've still been I've had a good time reading it. Notion said, when I put in my, like, stats or my criteria, Notion said that this book was a 2.4. I ranked it as a 2.5. This one was Cole is a really, really famous, really popular, very rich, artist. And the other artist in this, his, community or his group or whatever you want to call it, is like a serial killer, and Cole is also a serial killer. Like, he'll kill people. You know, he has, like, he rationalizes why he's doing it. And so the other artist, not Cole, kidnaps Mara and basically leaves her for almost dead in the path of Cole, with the expectation that Cole will kill her. Like, he basically kidnaps her, binds her up, does things, leaves her in like a forest where he knows kind of where Cole kind of visits regularly, and Cole stumbles upon her and he contemplates killing her, but he doesn't. He leaves her for dead. She somehow miraculously is able to get free. She runs for the streets. Someone finds her. And Cole very quickly realizes Mara is still alive. And he ends up like dating, like in a relationship with her. It's very weird. And it's just weird. I don't know. It does end it does lead up well to the second book of the series. I'm hoping the second book is better because you get like the backstory between Mara, Cole, and the other artist. I can't remember what his name was. You get their storyline, and so I'm hoping that the second book is way better and it kind of wraps everything up, but we'll see. It wasn't the best, definitely. It was a 2.5. It was a decent read, but it was definitely something that if this was a standalone, I would never recommend it to anybody. I'm hoping the second book is better, and then at that point, I might recommend it to people if you would be interested into dark romance, but it just wasn't my favorite. The next book I read in July was Hideaway. This was book 2 of Devil's Night. This is a dark romance that's on Kindle Unlimited. And I ended up rating, Notion said this should be a 3-star, and I agreed. I rated it as a 3-star. Now, this one was through Banks, is the female, and Kai. I liked Kai in Corrupt, which was the first book. And so I was excited to see his storyline, but honestly, I was bored. Like, it took me 3 days to read the book, but I wasn't excited to read it. Once it got started, I got kind of bored with it. I was reading it because it was somewhat enjoyable, but it was just, I don't know, it was lacking. I don't know what it was. It was okay. I have heard that books 3 and 4, which will be Will's book is 3, Damon's book is 4. Those 2 books are like people's favorites of the Devil's Night series. So I'm hoping, and I can see Will's character being someone I actually would be interested in reading. And then Damon's character, I really want to get Damon's backstory and see what's up with him, because Damon is like the villain of the friend group in books 1 and books 2. And so I really want to see what goes on with him and like his storyline and how it turns around. So I'm really excited for the next 2 books. But this book 2, Hideaway, was just, it was just an okay book. Again, it was like the filler book in between the first book and then the end of the book series. So it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was okay. And then the last book that I actually finished in the month of July was Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. Now, this is book 2 of the, what is it called? Lakefront Billionaires. This is Raphael and Ellie. Now, Notion said this should be a 4.4. I gave it a 4.5. This one had a lot of different tropes. So it has single dad. Apparently, I enjoy single dad tropes. So it has single dad. It had boss employee. So Ellie is the nanny of Raphael's son. So, and she's a live-in nanny. It's not even like she's comes in every day and then leaves to go back home. She lives at his house. So you have boss employee. And then you also have she knew of him in high school. He did not know of her, but she she had a crush on him in high school, but he had no idea. He was like the popular football player. He was on the soccer team. He was prom king. Like he was it in high school. And she was so crushing on him. And so when she, got the nanny job, she had to try to hold those, feelings in because, she didn't want him to know about it. And they go on vacation to Hawaii, her, Raphael, and their son Nico, or his son Nico. And it was a good time. I really did enjoy it. I did think this book, at the very beginning of the month, I said, I don't know how I was going to like it because this is like 600 pages. And I don't really like romance books that are over like 400. Like 400 is like the max. 400 to 450, that's a good number pages for a romance. Anything more than that, I feel like it's way too much. And I felt that way with this book. So there were storylines that I really don't think we needed to go into depth in. I think they could have like discussed, these other storylines and how it impacted Raphael and Ellie's like character, like how they, thought and they felt of different things by explaining and maybe showing a little bit of like flashbacks of what happened. But like there was an entire story of Raphael and his ex-wife. Okay. And then you have Ellie, and she had her storyline with Ava, and then also with, what's his name? Cole. And I think it could have been explained, but it didn't really need to have so many chapters and so much information in it. So I felt like if it would have focused on Raphael and Ellie and Nico, and honestly, I thought Nico was going to have, because Nico has like a medical condition that's like worsening as he gets older. I really thought that was going to be more built into the storyline, but it was mentioned at the beginning, but it really wasn't, like nothing like at the end. Even in the epilogue, there was still no references to it. I don't know. I just expected more. So it was 4.5. It wasn't the best, but it was definitely, it was a good read. I did enjoy it. So I am waiting. I can't wait for the next book. I think the next book is going to be on Lorenzo, which I'm really enjoying. I really think I'm going to like Lorenzo's book because he was introduced in this book and he's also in the first book. And I really have liked his character whenever he is involved in the story. So I can't wait for his book to come out. So I think that's next. Hopefully. So 4.5. Pretty good. All right. So now we're going to talk about the books that I did not read really quickly. So I started Bless Your Heart. That was a library hold that I started. I got about 40% in, and I don't know what it was. I think it was a good, right book, wrong time, because it's like vampires and it talks about like the undead and I don't know. It just wasn't for me. I DNF'd it. I might end up trying to pick it back up again in like October, November timeframe, and maybe that will be a better time frame for me to read it, but I just wasn't involved. I just wasn't. I had it for weeks, and it just sat on my desk or on my end table, and I never really touched it. So I DNF'd it. It just wasn't it for me. So, and then the other books that I had was Love in the Time of Serial Killers. I honestly picked this up like on July the 31st. I read about 12 pages, and I think I'm just going to put this down. I'm going to read it. It was okay, but I have, for the month of August, I just have so many other books that I want to read. So this is going to go back on my bookshelf. I will read it eventually, but it just wasn't read in July. And then we have Magnolia Parks. This was going to be a reread because I bought all of the Magnolia Parks series up to this point. I just haven't had a chance to finish it. So this will be read at some point. I just wasn't able to read it in July. And then I have Ruthless Vows again. How many times is this going to be on my TBR and not actually get read? I don't know what it is. I just don't want to read this. I want to read it, which is funny. I want to read it, but then I don't want to read it. Every time I try to grab it and I look at it and I read the synopsis of this book, I end up just putting it back down again. I don't know what it is. It's just not for me right now, but I will finish it because I want to finish this duology in 2024. It will be read. This has been on my TBR so many times this year, and I just haven't had a chance to read it. So unfortunately, this was not read again. And then the other book that I had anticipated me reading was on Kindle, and it's The Lies We Steal. It's book 1 of a dark romance series. I think this is the one that's the most, people like it the least, which is probably the reason why I didn't want to pick it up, because if I know people don't enjoy it or it's one of the least favorites of a series, I usually end up I'm usually hesitant to read it. So I kind of expected I wouldn't read this book, but I put it on the list just in case. So maybe I'll pick it up in August or some other time, but unfortunately didn't get read in July. So those are all of the books that I had on my TBR for July, and my thoughts on if I read them, what my thoughts were, and if I didn't read them, kind of why. So I had one other thing that I did want to do and I wanted to show the books that I purchased in the month of July, and luckily, surprisingly, happily, I only have 2. There's been months that I've bought like 15 books, unfortunately, but this month I only bought 2, so we're gonna talk about those now. So the first book that I bought in July was a pre-order, and that is Foxglove, which is book 2 of the Belladonna series. I bought this has been out for a while, but I did not want a hardback because I have a paperback copy of Belladonna, and I wanted to have a paperback copy of Foxglove, and this version has beautiful pink sprayed edges, so I had to get this version. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, so we have Foxglove. I will be trying to read this because I believe Wisteria comes out later this year, and I do want to read that as well. And then the other book that I bought, I wanted to buy a while ago because I finished reading this on Kindle Unlimited, went on a hunt to find the paperback copy or a physical copy of the book, and it was nowhere to be found. Then I found out shortly thereafter that the cover was getting a revamp. So the old cover was pulled off the shelves and a new cover was available. So I looked on Amazon, and Amazon had the new cover. So I went and ordered it. Lo and behold, when I received it, I did not receive the new cover. I actually received the old cover, which was the Mindfuck series. And honestly, I'm not mad about it. I wanted this copy as it is anyways. I wanted the OG version of this book. And so I'm very, very, very excited that Amazon sent me this one. I do still want to get the new version of this book, though. I do want to get the new cover, but I want to wait until I see people actually receiving the new cover, because I'm afraid if I put in another order now, I'm just going to get another version of this, and I don't want another version of this. I want a version of the new cover of this book. So I am excited. I have the original Mindfuck series book. So good. If you have not read this series, it is so good. Serial killer, FBI romance, so good. Loved it. It's 5 little books on Kindle Unlimited. This is now one big book of like 681 pages put together with epilogues. But if you have not read it, definitely read it. It's such a good story. So I have the Mindfuck series, finally. So this will be going on my bookshelf, and I am excited. So, but with that, that is going to be it for this July reading wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. If you have not subscribed, please make sure you do so. I would greatly appreciate it. And with that, I will see everybody in my next video. Bye.